There is a moment, somewhere between midnight and morning, when a man or a woman lies awake staring at the ceiling. The numbers are running through their mind like a relentless train on a broken track. The mortgage, the credit card, the loan that was supposed to be temporary but has somehow become a permanent resident in their life. They watch the shadows on the ceiling and they ask the question that millions have asked in the dark hours of their private desperation. Why is this so hard? Why does money slip through my fingers like water through sand? Why do I work so diligently, so faithfully, and yet the gap between what I have and what I need seems to widen with every passing season? If that is you tonight, if that has ever been you, then I want you to lean in, very close, to what I am about to say. I want you to hear it not just with your ears, but with the deep place inside you that has never stopped believing that something better was possible. Because what I am about to share with you is not a motivational pep talk. It is not a collection of financial strategies or investment tips. What I am about to lay before you is a set of eternal laws, cosmic principles that were operating before the first bank was ever built, before the first coin was ever minted, before any human being ever assigned a value to gold or silver or paper. These are the laws of the original economy. And the original economy, unlike every economy that man has ever constructed, has never once experienced a recession. It has never had a bad quarter. It has never been shaken by a market correction or rattled by inflation or brought to its knees by a global crisis. God's economy never crashes. And the moment you understand that, the moment that truth moves from your mind into your bones, everything changes. The world you live in is governed by a visible economy. You can see it on the news every night. You can feel it at the grocery store when the price of bread has gone up again. You can sense it in the conversation at work when people speak in hushed tones about layoffs and budget cuts. The visible economy is real. I am not going to stand here and tell you that the bills are not real or that the hardship is imaginary. The difficulty is genuine. The pressure is genuine. But here is the truth that the visible economy does not want you to know. It is not the only economy. It is not even the primary economy. It is the shadow. It is the reflection. It is the downstream effect of a far more powerful, far more ancient, and absolutely unshakable economy that exists in the invisible realm, and you have access to that economy right now. Not when you get the promotion, not when the market recovers, not when your circumstances align. Right now, in this very moment, with whatever is or is not in your wallet, you have a direct line to a supply that has no ceiling, no floor, no seasonal variation, and no possibility of running dry. The ancient teachers understood this. Florence Scovel Shinn, who walked this earth in the early part of the last century and left behind words that have outlasted every financial crisis of her time, she understood it. She wrote with a certainty that shook people because it was not the certainty of optimism, it was the certainty of law. She said that supply always precedes demand. Let that sink in for a moment. Supply always precedes demand. Before you knew you needed the money, the supply was already in motion. Before the crisis arrived, the solution had already been dispatched. Before you formulated the prayer, the answer was already on its way. This is not poetry. This is the operation of a divine principle that is as dependable and as precise as the law of gravity. You do not have to believe in gravity for it to hold you to the earth. And you do not have to fully understand the law of divine supply for it to be operating in your favor. But when you do understand it, when you align yourself with it consciously and deliberately, the results move from trickle to flood. So let us talk about the decreed word. Let us talk about the most powerful financial instrument that has ever existed, and it is not a stock portfolio or a real estate deed or a government bond. It is the spoken word charged with faith. This concept is ancient beyond measure. The very first chapter of the very first book of Scripture tells us that the entire created universe was spoken into existence. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. He did not sit down and calculate how light might be produced. He did not form a committee to study the feasibility of illumination. He decreed. He spoke from a place of absolute authority, absolute faith, and absolute expectation, and the invisible became visible. The unformed took form, the potential became actual. And you, made in the image and likeness of that same creative power, carry within you the identical capacity. You are a decreeing being. The question is not whether you are speaking your world into existence. You are already doing that. The question is what you are decreeing. The question is what kind of world your words have been building while you were not paying attention. Because here is the sobering truth that must be faced before we can move into the glory of what is possible. Most people are using their decreeing power against themselves every single day. They wake up in the morning, and the first words out of their mouth are words of lack. I never have enough. This is going to be a struggle. I do not know how I am going to make it through this month. They sit at the breakfast table, and they rehearse their poverty like a student rehearsing lines for a play. They talk about how expensive everything is. They talk about how the economy is destroying their chances. They complain about the cost of living and the unfairness of their situation. And every single word, charged with the emotion of fear and frustration and resignation, goes into the subconscious mind like a decree from a king. And the subconscious mind, which is the most faithful and literal servant in all of creation, goes to work immediately to make that decree a reality. It does not evaluate. It does not argue. It does not say, "Are you sure you want this?" It simply executes the order. And so the lack that was feared becomes the lack that is experienced. And the person looks at their circumstances and says, "You see, I knew it would be this way." And they have no idea that they are the author of the very story they are lamenting. But this works in both directions. If the decreed word of fear and lack can build a prison, then the decreed word of faith and abundance can build a palace. If the spoken word of defeat can close every door, then the spoken word of divine expectation can fling open doors that no man can shut. This is not wishful thinking. This is the operation of exact and immutable law. And it is available to you right now with the same immediacy that it has always been available to every person who ever walked this earth and discovered the secret. The secret is this. You are not waiting for God to decide to bless you. God's decision was made before the foundation of the world. The blessing is already prepared. The supply is already abundant. The divine design for your financial life is already completed in the invisible realm. Your only task, your singular responsibility, is to align your words, your thoughts, and your actions with that already completed reality. Let us talk about what the decreed word actually is, because there is a difference, a vast and critical difference, between a wish and a decree. A wish comes from a place of want. It comes from the awareness of lack. When you wish for something, you are unconsciously affirming that you do not have it and that you are not sure you will get it. A wish has a tentative, apologetic quality to it. It is the voice of someone who does not quite believe they deserve what they are asking for. A decree is something entirely different. A decree comes from a place of authority. It comes from the recognition of your divine inheritance. When you decree, you are not asking the universe to consider your request. You are announcing a truth. You are not petitioning from below. You are speaking from above, from the level of the divine mind within you, which already knows that the supply is complete and the abundance is real. The patriarchs understood this. The prophets understood this. Every great teacher of the spiritual law understood this. When they needed water in the desert, they did not wring their hands and wonder if perhaps God might see fit to send rain. They spoke to the rock. They commanded the waters. They decreed the miracle, and the miracle appeared. Now I know what the reasonable mind is saying right now. It is saying, that is all very well for prophets and patriarchs, but I am just a person trying to pay my rent. I am just trying to keep the lights on and put food on the table for my family. And to that reasonable mind I say with all the love and firmness I can muster, you are exactly the kind of person this law was designed for. The extraordinary is not reserved for the extraordinary. The divine supply is not rationed based on your spiritual credentials. The universal economy does not have a VIP section. It is open to all, available to all, and responsive to all, who will meet its conditions. And the primary condition is this: you must speak as one who has, not as one who lacks. You must open your mouth and let the language of abundance replace the language of poverty that has been running like a broken record in the background of your mind for years, perhaps for decades. Let us go deeper into the mechanics of this. The subconscious mind, as I have said, is a faithful servant. But it is more than that. It is also the connecting tissue between your individual mind and the infinite mind. It is the bridge between what you believe to be true and what the universe delivers to your experience. When you speak a word with feeling, with genuine emotional conviction, that word is pressed into the subconscious like a seal pressed into warm wax. It leaves an impression, and that impression goes out into the field of infinite possibility and draws to you the people, the circumstances, the ideas, the opportunities, and the resources that correspond to it. This is the law of attraction, operating at its most precise. But attraction without the spoken word is slow and imprecise. The spoken word turbocharges the process. It adds authority and direction to the magnetic pull of your consciousness. It is the difference between a general wish for warmth and the specific command that ignites a fire. This is why the great teachers always gave their students specific affirmations, specific decrees to speak aloud. Not because there is magic in the sounds themselves, though vibration is indeed a fundamental force in creation, but because when you speak a truth aloud, you engage the whole of your being in the act of declaring it. Your voice is involved, your breath is involved, your attention is focused, your body is physically participating in the act of creation. And when the words are charged with genuine faith, when they are spoken not as a hope, but as an already established fact, the response of the universe is swift and sure. But there is a condition that must be met, and this condition is where most people stumble. The condition is this: you must mean it. You cannot decree abundance while mentally holding a reservation. You cannot say with your mouth, "I am rich in God's grace," while your mind is simultaneously running the calculation of how little is in your bank account. That is what the ancient texts called being double-minded. And a double-minded person will not receive anything from the divine supply, not because God is withholding, but because the signal is scrambled. The universe cannot deliver a clear order when the order keeps contradicting itself. The telephone line between your consciousness and the infinite is a private line, but you have to stop speaking two languages into it at the same time. This is the discipline. This is the inner work that most people are not willing to do, and it is why most people never experience the full flood of their divine inheritance. The discipline is to choose your words as carefully as a craftsman chooses his tools, to guard the door of your lips as vigilantly as a treasury guard watches the vault. Because every word you speak is a brick in the building of your financial reality, and you are building something every moment of every day, whether you are aware of it or not. The poverty-conscious person builds a shack with the bricks of lack and complaint. The abundance-conscious person builds a mansion with the bricks of gratitude and divine expectation. Same law, same mechanism, wildly different results. So how do we make the shift? How do we move from a lifetime of poverty language to the fluency of divine decree? It begins with a single moment of decision. Not a feeling, because feelings are unreliable at the beginning of any transformation. It begins with a decision, a clear, firm, unambiguous decision that you are done speaking the language of lack. That from this moment forward, your mouth will be an instrument of the divine economy and not a broadcasting station for the fears and doubts of the world system. That decision, made in the privacy of your own heart, is itself a decree. It is the first stone laid in the foundation of your new financial reality. Once that decision is made, the next step is to identify the specific words and phrases that have been working against you. These are the phrases that come out automatically, without thought. Things like, "I never have enough," "Money is tight," "I cannot afford that," "Everything is so expensive," "Rich people are lucky and I am not." These phrases feel like observations. They feel like you are just describing reality, but they are not descriptions. They are decrees. and every time you speak them, you are signing a contract with the universe for more of the same. You must catch these phrases as they arise, and you must replace them, immediately and without hesitation, with their divine counterpart. I never have enough becomes, my supply is infinite, and my needs are always met. Money is tight becomes, money flows to me freely and abundantly, from multiple directions. I cannot afford that becomes, I choose not to spend on that right now, knowing that my supply is expanding daily. I am not asking you to deny the current reality. I am asking you to refuse to give the current reality a permanent address in your future by constantly decreeing it into being. There is a story, old and deep, of a woman who came to the prophet in a time of great financial crisis. Her husband had died, her creditors were at the door. They were threatening to take her children as payment for the debt. She had nothing in the house except a small pot of oil. And the prophet gave her instructions that must have seemed absolutely bizarre to the reasonable mind. He told her to go out and borrow as many empty vessels as she could find, as many as possible, to go to every neighbor, every friend, every person she knew, and collect their empty containers, and then to go inside, shut the door, and begin to pour. Now stop for a moment and feel the faith that took. She had almost nothing, and she was being told to prepare for an overflow so massive that she would need hundreds of containers to hold it. The reasonable mind would have said, "This is absurd. I barely have enough for a few drops. Why am I collecting hundreds of pots?" But she obeyed. She gathered the vessels. She shut the door. She began to pour. And the oil that should have run out in moments flowed and filled every vessel she had gathered. And when the last vessel was full, the oil stopped. The supply matched her preparation exactly. It filled every container she had faith enough to provide. That story is not merely ancient history. It is a living blueprint for your financial breakthrough. The empty vessels are your prepared expectation. They are the actions you take before the money arrives. They are the mindset you cultivate before the circumstances change. They are the decrees you speak before the evidence appears. The divine supply will always fill the vessels of your faith. If you prepare one small vessel with a half-hearted decree and a fearful expectation, the supply will trickle in to match that preparation. But if you go out and gather every vessel you can find, if you expand your expectation to the absolute limits of what you can imagine, if you fill your mind with decrees of overflow and abundance and divine multiplication, the supply will come in like a flood. It will fill every vessel you have prepared, and it will not stop until your preparation runs out. So the real question is not whether God has enough to fill your life with abundance. The real question is, how many vessels are you preparing? This brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of the divine economy, and that is the relationship between the word and the action. Many people who discover the power of affirmation and decree make the mistake of believing that the spoken word alone is sufficient. They affirm their abundance morning and night, and then wait passively for the supply to arrive. But faith without works is dead. The spoken word is the seed, but seeds must be planted in prepared ground. The decree is the blueprint, but blueprints must be followed with construction. The divine economy operates through channels, and those channels are almost always human hands and human actions and human decisions. Your job is to keep speaking the word, yes, but also to keep moving in the direction of the supply, to follow every hunch, to act on every inspiration, to take every step that presents itself, even when the destination is not yet visible. The great secret of the fully activated divine economy is this. When your word and your action are aligned, when you are speaking abundance and simultaneously moving toward it, the two forces create a vortex of attraction that is virtually unstoppable. The universe sees both your faith and your feet moving in the same direction, and it rushes to meet you. It opens doors that have been sealed for years. It brings people across your path who carry exactly the piece of the puzzle you have been missing. It presents opportunities that seem to come from nowhere, from the invisible realm where your abundant supply has been patiently waiting for you to show up and claim it. Let us speak about the enemies of the decree. Because there are forces, inner forces, not external enemies, that will rise up to challenge your new language of abundance. The first and most persistent is doubt. Doubt is not your enemy in the sense of a malevolent force. Doubt is simply the voice of the old programming. It is the subconscious speaking up on behalf of all the years of poverty, thinking that it has been asked to maintain. When you begin to speak new decrees, the old patterns do not simply vanish, they resist. They push back. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn called chemicalization. When you introduce a powerful new truth into a system that has been operating on old lies, there is a reaction. Things may seem to get temporarily worse. Bills may arrive. Setbacks may appear. The reasonable mind looks at this and says, "You see, it is not working. Give up." But the spiritual mind recognizes it for what it is. It is the old order dissolving. It is the darkness just before the dawn. Stand still. Do not retreat. Speak your decree louder. Speak it with more conviction. The chemicalization is the proof that the law is working. It means the old records are being broken up and cleared away to make room for the new reality you have decreed. The second enemy of the decree is impatience. We live in a world of instant gratification, and it has made us terrible at the spiritual discipline of patient expectation. When we speak a decree and the supply does not arrive by Tuesday, we begin to waver. We begin to add qualifiers to our affirmations. We start saying things like, "I hope that abundance is coming," instead of "I know that abundance is mine." The moment you add hope in place of knowing, you have downgraded your decree to a wish. And wishes, as we have established, come from the energy of lack and uncertainty. You must hold the knowing. You must maintain the certainty of your decree even when the evidence of your senses is screaming that nothing has changed. This is the acid test of genuine faith. It is easy to believe in abundance when the bank account is full. It costs you nothing to be positive when everything is going well. But to stand in the middle of apparent lack and speak your decree with absolute certainty, that is the act that moves mountains. That is the faith that makes the invisible supply rush into visible form. The third enemy is comparison. We are surrounded by people who are telling us what is possible and what is not. We see the success of others, and we compare it to our own lack, and we conclude that abundance is for them, but not for us. We look at the economy, and we see what other people are experiencing, and we assume that we must experience the same. But God's economy does not work on the bell curve. It does not average out your supply with your neighbor's supply. It does not limit you to what the people around you are experiencing. The divine supply is individual. It is personal. It is completely customized to your specific divine design. Your neighbor's abundance does not diminish your abundance. Your colleague's success does not shrink your supply. The universal bank is not a finite resource that gets depleted as others draw from it. It is infinite. And infinitely customized decrees draw infinitely customized supply. Stop measuring your financial future against the financial present of those around you. They are in their channel, and you are in yours. And your channel, properly opened with the power of the decreed word, can carry a flood that has no comparison in your experience or theirs. Now, let us talk about the specific power of gratitude as it relates to the decreed word. Because gratitude is not merely a pleasant spiritual practice. It is one of the most potent financial instruments in the divine economy. When you give thanks for what you have not yet seen, you are essentially placing a claim on the invisible supply. You are saying to the universe, "I am so certain that this is already mine, that I am celebrating it now." And that certainty, expressed through gratitude, is the highest form of the decreed word. It is the decree of completion. It is the announcement that in the fourth dimension, in the realm of the divine reality, the supply is already here, already mine, already flowing. And the universe, which operates on the principle that what is true in the invisible must become visible, rushes to catch up with your gratitude by making the supply manifest in the physical world. This is why the master teacher always gave thanks before the miracle appeared. Before the 5 loaves became food for thousands, he gave thanks. Before the dead were raised, he gave thanks. Before the healing was visible to the naked eye, he said, "Father, I thank thee that thou hearest me always." He was not giving thanks for a future possibility. He was giving thanks for an already accomplished fact in the realm of divine reality. And that gratitude, that absolute certainty expressed in the language of thanksgiving, was the final decree that brought the invisible supply into visible manifestation. You must do the same. You must develop the spiritual discipline of thanking God for your abundance before your bank statement agrees with you. You must give thanks for your paid bills before the check arrives. You must celebrate your financial freedom before the last debt is discharged. Not as a pretense, not as a performance, but as a genuine act of faith in the reality of the divine economy that operates behind and beyond the visible world of appearances. There is a principle in the divine economy that I want to name specifically because it is one of the most liberating truths you will ever encounter. It is the principle of divine channels. In God's economy, your salary is a channel. Your business income is a channel. Your investments are a channel. But none of these are the source. God is the source. And this distinction, seemingly simple, is actually revolutionary in its implications. When you depend on a channel, you live in constant anxiety about that channel. You fear losing your job because you believe your job is your source. You fear business slowdowns because you believe your clients are your source. You fear market crashes because you believe your portfolio is your source. But when you transfer your dependence to the source itself, when you recognize that the infinite spirit is the origin of all your supply and that channels are simply the current delivery method, then you are free. You are free from the fear that any single channel can fail you permanently, because you know that if one channel closes, it is only because a larger, more magnificent channel is being prepared. The source never dries up. Only the channels change. And here is the extraordinary implication of that truth. When you are aligned with the source, rather than dependent on the channels, you become magnetic to new channels. You become open to supply coming from directions you could never have anticipated. Money can come to you through a sudden gift, through an unexpected contract, through a forgotten debt that is repaid, through an idea that becomes a product, through a connection that becomes an opportunity, through a letter in the mail from a source you had long forgotten. The divine economy is infinitely creative in its delivery methods. It is not constrained by your employment contract or your current business model or the number of clients in your database. It can bring your supply through channels that do not even exist yet. It can create the channel as it delivers the supply, but you must keep your decreeing word aligned with the source and not with the channel. You must affirm your supply based on your connection to the infinite and not based on the current state of your earthly income streams. I want to address something that lives in the hearts of many people who are hearing these truths for the first time, or who have been working with them for a while without seeing the breakthrough they expected. There is a quiet, persistent question that whispers, "But what if I have been doing everything right and it still has not come? What if I have been speaking my decrees and giving thanks and acting in faith, and the supply still seems distant?" To you I say, first, do not give up. The divine economy operates on divine timing, and divine timing is not always the same as our human preference for timing. The supply that is coming toward you may be so large, so comprehensive, so transformative, that it required more preparation than a small trickle would have required. The bigger the blessing, the longer the gestation. The greater the harvest, the more thorough the plowing. But I also want to say this with deep compassion and absolute honesty. If the supply has been slow in coming, examine your inner decree. Not your spoken affirmations, but the deeper decree. The one that runs beneath your words like an underground river, because sometimes we are speaking abundance with our mouths while our hearts are still decreeing lack. Sometimes we are affirming prosperity with our conscious mind while our subconscious is still running the old program at full power. The inner decree always overrides the outer one. The deep belief always wins over the surface statement. This is why the work must go all the way down. It must reach into the subconscious and do the deep clearing, the breaking of the old records, the dismantling of the inherited poverty consciousness. The releasing of every belief that says you are not worthy of abundance, that money is not spiritual, that wealth is for other people, that you have some karmic debt to pay before you can receive your good. These deep beliefs are the real blockers, and they yield to persistent, passionate, deeply felt decree. Speak to your subconscious directly. Command it to release every false record of lack. Decree to it, with the authority of the divine mind within you, that its new program is abundance, that its new directive is to draw supply from every direction, that its new operating instruction is to recognize and receive every channel through which the divine economy is trying to deliver your good. This is not a one-time conversation. It is an ongoing practice. It is the daily renewal of the mind that the ancient teachers pointed to. Every morning, before the world gets its hooks into you with its news of economic doom and financial anxiety, you must renew your mind with the truth of the divine economy. You must set the frequency of your consciousness to abundance before the voices of the world can tune it to lack. This is your most important financial practice. More important than any investment strategy or budgeting system, though those have their place, the inner alignment is the foundation. Everything else is decoration. Let us speak now about circulation, because it is the lifeblood of the divine economy, and it is the area where many sincere, faith-filled people block their own supply without realizing it. The divine economy requires movement. It requires flow. Money that is hoarded in fear stops its own multiplication. Money that is circulated with faith and generosity multiplies beyond calculation. The reason for this is not mystical. It is the nature of energy, which is what money ultimately is. Energy that is dammed up stagnates. Energy that is allowed to flow creates a current that pulls more energy along with it. When you give, when you circulate money with a spirit of abundance rather than gripping it with the hands of fear, you are setting the energy in motion. You are creating a current. And that current, like a river, carves a channel that grows wider and deeper with every flow. The giver never loses. The giver activates the law of increase. The giver sends a boomerang that must return to them laden with more than it carried when it left. This does not mean reckless spending. It does not mean giving away more than you genuinely have. It means releasing the grip of fear from your finances. It means paying your bills with a blessing instead of a curse. It means tipping with the spirit of a person who has plenty. It means giving to causes that stir your heart, even when the gift feels small, because a small gift given with great faith is worth more in the divine economy than a large gift given with resentment or calculation. It means buying what you need without the running commentary in your mind about how the money is decreasing. It means treating your outgoing money as seed that you are planting rather than supply that you are losing. Every dollar that leaves your hands with a blessing and a word of faith is a seed in the ground of the divine economy. And in God's economy, every seed produces a harvest that is vastly disproportionate to its size. A mustard seed becomes a tree. A small act of financial faith becomes a river of abundance. This is the law. This is the promise. 2. This is the truth that the divine economy has been waiting for you to activate in your life. We are now going to seal this truth into our beings with the most powerful tool we have. We are going to speak the decreed word. We are going to open our mouths and let the language of God's economy replace every false financial record that has been written over our divine design. These are not empty phrases. They are living truths that carry the frequency of the infinite. Speak them with everything you have. Speak them with the certainty of someone who has already seen the supply, who already knows the abundance is real, who has already walked into the divine treasury and seen their name inscribed on every wall. From this moment, I declare that I am a citizen of God's economy. I am not subject to the crashes and contractions of the world's economic system. I live in a realm of supply that never diminishes, never wavers, never fails. I am linked with the infinite source, and from that source, my supply flows unceasingly, abundantly, and in perfect divine order. I decree that my mind is now cleared of every false record of lack, poverty, and limitation. Every inherited belief that money is hard to get, that abundance is for others, that I am somehow disqualified from financial freedom, I dissolve it now with the light of this divine truth. Those records are broken, those patterns are dissolved. They return to the nothingness from which they came. I now declare a new record. I am wealthy. I am supplied. I am the beloved child of an infinitely abundant Father, and it is His good pleasure to give me the kingdom. I decree that my channels are many, my sources are infinite, and my supply is consistent and growing. Money comes to me from expected and unexpected sources. It comes from directions I have anticipated and from directions I have never imagined. It comes swiftly, and it comes in abundance. Every door that was closed to my financial good is now flung open by the divine decree. Every path that seemed blocked is now made clear by the infinite intelligence that governs all supply. I do not limit the Holy One of Israel. I do not dictate the method or the timing of my divine supply. I simply know that it is here, that it is mine, and that it is flowing to me right now. I declare that I am a faithful steward of the divine supply. I circulate money with a free heart and a generous spirit. I give and I receive with equal grace. I bless every dollar that leaves my hands, and I welcome every dollar that enters them. I am a river of abundance, not a reservoir of fear. The flow through me is perfect, constant, and increasing. I am not afraid to give, because I know that giving opens the floodgates of the divine economy. And I am not afraid to receive, because I know that I am worthy. I am the rightful heir of all the abundance that God has prepared. I decree that my words are now the words of the divine economy. My mouth is an instrument of creation. When I speak abundance, abundance is created. When I decree financial freedom comes into being. My spoken word is charged with the authority of the divine mind within me. It goes out and it accomplishes that for which it was sent. It does not return to me empty. It returns laden with the harvest of faith. This is the law. This is the truth. This is my reality, now and forever. I give thanks, deep and genuine and overflowing thanks, for the supply that is already mine in the invisible realm, and that is now rushing into visible manifestation in every area of my financial life. I give thanks for the bills that are being paid. I give thanks for the debts that are being dissolved. I give thanks for the unexpected income that is on its way. I give thanks for the ideas that will become wealth, for the connections that will become opportunity, for the doors that are opening right now in the invisible world and will be visible to me very soon. I am grateful now. I celebrate now. I rejoice now, not in hope, but in certainty. Not in wishful thinking, but in the absolute knowing of one who lives in God's economy, where the supply is always sufficient, always immediate, and always more than enough. Before we seal this truth permanently into our lives, I want to speak to the person who has tried before. The person who has read the books, spoken the affirmations, attended the seminars, and still finds themselves in the same financial valley they were in a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10. I want to speak to that person with particular care, because your story is not finished. Your breakthrough is not canceled. The fact that you have tried and seemingly not yet succeeded does not mean the law does not work. It means there is still something in you that has not yet fully surrendered to the truth. And I say that not as a criticism, but as a liberation. Because if the problem is simply a matter of deeper surrender, then the solution is within your reach right now, not in another decade, not when circumstances are better, right now. The most common reason that people work with these laws for years without seeing the full manifestation is that they are working at the level of the conscious mind, while the subconscious is still running the original program at full power. It is like driving a car with one foot on the accelerator and one foot on the brake. The engine is working, the fuel is flowing, but the car is not moving because something is holding it back. The holding back force is always some version of unworthiness. Deep in the subconscious, beneath all the affirmations and all the sincere spiritual effort, there is a belief that says, I do not really deserve this. Or, who am I to claim abundance when so many are suffering? Or, money has always been difficult in my family, and I am probably destined for the same. These beliefs do not announce themselves in clear language. They operate in whispers, in subtle hesitations, in the slight pulling back that happens just as the breakthrough is about to arrive. In the decision to not quite take the bold step. In the inclination to settle for less than the full divine design. The decree that breaks this pattern is the decree of divine worthiness. You must look into the deepest part of yourself and speak to that hidden doubt with the authority of God's own word. You must say to it, I was created worthy. I was designed for abundance. My worthiness is not earned by my behavior or my achievements. It is inherent. It is woven into my nature by the same hand that created the stars and filled the seas. I do not need to earn my place in the divine economy. I was born into it. And no amount of past failure, no amount of accumulated debt, no amount of seemingly intractable financial difficulty can change my standing as a beloved child of the infinite. That standing is permanent. That inheritance is mine, and I claim it now, fully and without apology. There is also the matter of forgiveness, which is one of the most powerful financial tools in the divine economy, though it is rarely spoken of in those terms. Unforgiveness is a closed circuit. It keeps energy trapped in the past, locked in old grievances and old hurts, unable to flow freely into the present moment where the divine supply is always available. If you are holding resentment against someone who wronged you financially, a partner who mismanaged money, a parent who left you with a poverty mindset, a business associate who betrayed your trust, a system that seemed designed to keep you down, that resentment is costing you more than the original loss. It is costing you the free flow of your own divine supply. Forgiveness is not condoning what happened. It is not pretending the harm was not real. It is releasing your own energy from the prison of the past so that it can be available for the abundance of the present. It is cutting the chain that has been tethering your financial future to a painful history. When you forgive, you are not doing the other person a favor. You are liberating yourself. You are opening a channel in your own being that has been blocked by bitterness. And when that channel opens, the divine supply that has been waiting for exactly this clearing rushes in with a force that can be breathtaking in its speed and its magnitude. Speak this decree of release. I forgive everyone who has ever harmed me financially. I release every resentment. I cut every cord of bitterness. I bless those who wronged me, and I release them to their own divine design. I am free. My energy is free. My channels are clear. My supply flows unimpeded from the infinite source through every open channel into my abundant life. This is done. This is real. This is the law of the divine economy, at work in my life. And now, let us speak to the future. Not the near future of next month's bills, but the eternal future of your divine design. The divine economy does not just want to get you out of debt. It does not just want to bring you to a place of barely sufficient. The divine design for your finances is extravagant. It is excessive by the standards of the world. It is the kind of abundance that allows you to be a blessing to everyone around you, that allows you to give generously to causes that transform lives, that allows you to provide for your family not just adequately, but magnificently, that allows you to live in a home that feels like a sanctuary and travel to places that expand your understanding of the world. That allows you to do the work that truly calls to your heart without having to calculate whether it pays enough. The divine design is not a survival plan. It is a flourishing plan. And it is as available to you as the air you are breathing right now. I want you to dare to imagine that. I want you to allow yourself, perhaps for the first time, without guilt or self-consciousness, to imagine what your fully abundant divine design looks like. Not a vague general sense of having more, but the specific texture of the life that God intended for you. What does your home feel like? What kind of work are you doing? How freely are you giving? What places are you seeing? What peace is living in your body when money is no longer a source of anxiety? Allow that image to become real in your mind. Hold it. Feel it. Because that image, held in faith and spoken into being through your decreed word, is a blueprint that the divine economy is waiting to build. The architect has the design, The materials are ready. The laborers of the infinite are standing by. All that is needed is for you to hand over that blueprint with confidence and say, "Build this. I am ready to receive it. I have prepared my vessels. I have spoken the decree. I stand in faith. Build this." Stand still now. Let these words settle into the deepest parts of you. Let them reach below the surface of your thinking mind and take root in the soil of your subconscious. Do not worry about how. Do not concern yourself with the mechanism or the timeline. Do not open your eyes and immediately start calculating the probability of these truths manifesting in your specific circumstances. Just let the word do its work. Just stand in the truth that you have spoken and let it reorganize your inner world. Because when the inner world changes, the outer world must follow. It has no choice. It is law. It is the oldest and most reliable law in the universe. And it is working for you right now, in this very moment, in the economy that never crashes, in the bank that never closes, in the supply that never runs dry. God's economy is your economy. Speak it, believe it, receive it. It is done.